So, and here we are again, and today with a very, very, very interesting topic. And I really hope that this time we are really live because it's always a problem that Facebook from time to time stops the live. So that's why I'm looking to the other side. But if things go okay, it is live. If not, we will make the recording available, so not a problem. So today we are talking about something that is very interesting, and we were talking a moment ago that finally we are not talking about business. We are talking about women and men, the laws of attraction and
Right,
relationships. So
right.
this time, and basically to start our conversation, that it will be a very interesting conversation, I'm sure, is what we bring to the table in terms of experience. And because A comes before F, you
Right.
start first. What you bring to the table about this topic?
Well, I think specifically, I'm a writer, I'm an author. And so that gives me, that juice to write and share information. But more specifically, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a marriage counselor. I am a great observer of life. And having written 24 books, soon to be 25, translated in 36 languages, I've learned to observe life. And so relationships is always an interesting pool to dive into. And so that's where I'm coming from.
Okay. Well, I told you that I was going to try to surprise you what I bring to the table. So basically, what I bring to the table is not, I'm also not a doctor, and especially on this area, of course not. And what I bring to the table is my own experience. And my own experience in terms of relationships, it's a little bit maybe different because of my way of life. So the last years, I have I had relationships a bit across the world, and also I had the opportunity to have meaningful conversations with men and women about relationships and trying to understand what is behind and what is common between cultures. Because it is funny that wherever we are people, and even if there are huge cultural differences, the way that people relate, the non-verbal communication that they assume is the same. And the impact that also even TV has in relationships, in how people perceive what is a relationship, how they perceive what is a marriage, etc., has been evolving with a lot of values that came through movies, from TV series, etc. So, and to give you a number, I cannot boast that I had a lot of relationships, but I had relationships in every continent. So if we are talking about uh, relationships with Asian, yes. With African, yes. With European, yes. With the American continent, also. So it is an interesting thing that I will bring to the table, and
Okay,
it's
now right there, that's interesting because I think to come out of the box, this is again where we said about women and men and the unique differences, um, that you would share that, which I love. I love hearing that, and I love knowing that. But that is such a guy thing. A woman would never start a Facebook Live or a Zoom or anything and talk about, having a lover on every continent. I mean, that would be it doesn't mean they shouldn't or whatever. It just means it's very
it
it's
happened. It
bold,
happened basically.
but it's a bold communication a technique, and I support that. So I'm just glad that you shared that. So we're just going to check those boxes. I love it.
But by the way, that creates a question that I have my own answer, but I want to get your answer.
Okay.
Who do you think cheats better, men or women?
Women, for sure, women. And I don't know that I would say cheats better, but who's more clever is what I would.
Yes.
I would say women.
I say cheat better in terms that they are not discovered, or that people think that they are not cheating at all.
Well, I think those are two different questions. And I think that there are lots of excuses people make in relationships. I've interviewed men who have said, well, I'm just, I don't feel the attraction anymore. I don't love her anymore. And that justifies sort of seeking out a different relationship, and vice versa. Women have said that. But in this case, I think when someone makes that decision to go with someone else, especially if they're still committed, then the not getting caught part is part of the whole process. And women tend to be clever. For example, the men I interviewed, they almost all was discovered. And part of that was the repetitive pattern of what they were doing. The same place, the same time, the same hotel, the same whatever. Where women were always changing it up. They wouldn't even drive on the same roads to the same place, or, they would, do things differently. And I'm not saying any one or the other is right. Neither is one or the other wrong. It is a personal choice, but it's very different how we think.
Yeah, but the thing is that one thing that distinguishes women from men is that women are much more detail oriented. And if you are, men or women, good at cheating, you need to be very careful with the details. And especially if you are a man towards a woman, because women will be checking much more the details than men will check the details. So at the same time, women have their life easy on that because men are not so keen on details, So,
and also men, with all respect, tend to, not always, get lazier faster. And so there's this laziness about just kind of, well, I don't really have to worry about this, and I'm just going to go get the same bottle of wine or go to the same hotel because everybody knows me, I can get a room. Women tend to put a little more effort into it, and thereby, even in strong relationships, there tends to be a little gap, that, like they say in London and the underground, mind the gap. That's a good tip in relationships too. How do you mind the gap? Because once that gap starts, it can widen, and someone's going to fall through the cracks. So how, that's something to be concerned about, or to think about, I should say.
Yeah. And going to another area, how you attract the right person at the right time.
Yeah. And I've got my little, just so you know, I've got my manuscript right here. It's full of everything. So I have it in manuscript format. So I'm going to be looking at some of the notes I pulled out for today's conversation. How do you know it's the right person at the right time? No forethought is no foreplay. You got to put some thought into what the heck it is you want. No forethought is no foreplay. So you're not going to even get to first base if you don't think about what is it that you like. Everyone's different. What do I like? What does this person like? I think you have to eventually come off the high of, there's a high that happens in your brain when you meet somebody. And I think when you meet the right person, part of that is not expecting anything when you go into it. What do you think? I mean, I think you have to accept what when I mean of the other person, not of yourself, but of the other person. Like, I expect you to do this right now, whatever. That doesn't work. Um, I think you have to imagine what it is you want. So that's the forethought. And then it becomes either choice or chance. And part of that is the energy that you put out and how you attract. I mean, people are attracted by energy. That is, when we talk about law of attraction, that's quantum physics, that's science. I mean, that isn't anything new. And so what kind of energy does that person emit, and what kind of energy do you put forth in response?
I think this is like these people that we call entrepreneurs, that they see opportunities everywhere. But basically, what happens is a normal phenomenon in the brain is that if you are looking for something, you will have much more chances of finding it. If you
Yes.
don't know what you are looking for, you will be like finding one thing that you don't know if it's good, it's bad, and you will continue like this. So I think that the best thing that when you want to attract the right person to in the right moment is to have a clear idea what you want at that point in life. Are you into a certain type of profile? I would say that is very close to recruiting. So it's like you establish a profile. You say, I want at this stage of my life to have beside me a person that has these kind of characteristics. And
Yeah.
you do like a checklist. You do
Yeah,
like,
well, that's the forethought. And I think the other part for me personally, and I write about this in the book, it's, um, I think men and women both complain a lot about what they don't have. I've met plenty of men who they complain that, oh, they don't get enough sex from their wife, or this one complains about this or that. And then when they get everything they want, they don't know what the heck to do with it. And so that is an interesting phenomenon. I write about that too. But for me, the calibrator was just to say, I spent 2 years saying yes, just saying yes to being open to every opportunity. I think there is, especially in America, where we're so, there's so many preconceived notions about relationships or sex or any of that. It's so different than it is in Europe. I mean, wouldn't you agree? I mean, in the United States, it's just a little bit different perspective, I think, than it might be in Europe.
yeah. The feeling that I have from the United States and my experience in the United States is that um, we are the old continent, but you are the conservative ones. So
Right,
it is
right.
it's something, and also in Europe there are different Europes. So we have the Southern European reality and the Nordic reality that is completely different in that area. So to give you an example. Many years ago, I was dating a Nordic girl, and she was very assertive. She would say exactly what she wanted, and for a Latin guy, he's like, "What?" But you have to understand that that is the culture, because working with Nordic people is the same. They will tell you what you are doing well and badly, and it's nothing personal. It's just work. And
Yeah, right.
imagine that in relationships, it's kind of not personal, is in order to you to improve yourself, and it's like, wow. So
Yeah,
it is, but at the end of the day, it's better that than trying to guess. So it's trying to guess
right.
what I'm doing wrong, is this, that. So it's like the guessing game. So I think it's much better to do that. But I think really it's very important at any point, but to do that profile, but also you have to understand yourself,
Yes.
because if you don't understand yourself, what you are, it will be very difficult to match somebody, because sometimes I think we are several people. We are the person that we are. We are the person that we think that we are. We are the person that people think that we are. And we are the person that we think that people think that we are. So, and sometimes all
True.
these people are not aligned.
Yeah.
And
Right. Well,
we,
I think they really are. And I think in that comes the intrigue. I think if you think about if it was just one not perspective but one realm, it would be really boring. And I think, that's why the brain is so important in all of this. And I do write about that to a certain degree because I'm not a doctor again. But Jerry Seinfeld has a great quote. He says the brain is a very sneaky organ. And I think that is a great point as it pertains to all this. When we spoke last time, we did a little after meeting, and I interviewed you a little bit on my book, and you made a comment that I thought was quite interesting, and I want to know more about what you think on this. And that is, you
okay.
said that you found in many cases, women tended to be more competitive in terms of the men in their lives, and men tended to be more collaborative. I remember that
Yeah,
stuck
yeah,
in
yeah.
my mind. Can you expand more on
I,
that?
I can even go for one typical example. Of course, there is exceptions to this rule, but we know a lot of cases where sisters compete for the same man, but we don't know so many brothers competing for the same woman. What is interesting, and the thing is that in my theory is, we did a long talk about that, so I will, let's say, do it very briefly. Everything that we are is the result of an anthropological memory. So we are not so evolved, so sophisticated as we think that we are. We actually are a result of memories. So while men are attracted more for physical aspect of the woman, because, okay, we are the primitive guys, so we are looking for reproduction functions. Women theoretically are much more evolved because they look to, if they are smart, if they are strong. Some of them are more attracted by strong men, some of them by smart. But one thing is clear, is that from those ancient times, it was very important to identify the alpha male because of the security that he could provide for her and the kids.
Mm-hmm.
We
Mm-hmm.
have to understand what was being a woman for millions of years. It's not the last 10 years, the last century, millions of years. It was a survival issue. And in order to survive, you had to be close to power. And power would manifestate itself by physical strength or intelligence.
And I think that is part of the hard wiring that's in every man and woman on the planet. However, I will say that through the evolution of all of us and how we think in the past, even 50 years, 20 years, 10 years, when you talked about how the physicality that men, seek the certain physical dynamics or whatever, women, have different or think differently. What I find is that gap's closing. I don't see that in the women I've interviewed. They definitely look for physicality, hence the difference now between women who tend to be a decade older than the men they are with. And that tends to be good because they have more energy typically than men. Men lose, testosterone, they lose a lot of, energy things. And that is a turnoff for a lot of women. So I think that is why you see the age difference thing becoming more and more and more and more prevalent, because the women are seeking that, specifically seeking that.
Well, I think also there is one thing about the image, that we live in a society that our image is much more exposed because of
Right.
social networks, because of the sharing of photos. Think about a platform like Tinder, swipe right, swipe left. So image is everything. And this is being, I think it will be even worse in the next years, because you can see young teenagers, especially girls, that are completely obsessed with the image that they put forward through the
Yeah.
Instagram,
Yeah.
Snapchat, TikTok, whatever.
Yeah.
And they are in the daily basis in with a mindset like a celebrity. So
Hmm.
they have to be at all time at the best. They know what is their best profile. They know how to put their lips, the duck lips, or something like
Right.
that.
Right. Right. Right.
So everything. So we are going a little much better, much more to the physical aspect on that. But again, it is everything comes to the anthropological memory that people have. Um, that's why women are so competitive between each other, because theoretically there is not, in a tribe, there is not 10 alpha males, there is one or two. So if a woman identifies somebody as interesting, uh, they will not cooperate, they will compete. So it is very strange, and that happened to me several times when I'm talking with a woman, and the friend comes, also a woman comes, and the other goes out, and suddenly the second one starts saying bad things, but in a nice way, like,
Mhm.
oh, she's very pretty. It's pity that it's a pity that, like a small drop, a small,
Yeah.
well,
That's so true. Yeah. Yeah.
and they do it, and it's very interesting, because the first times that I heard it was like, wow, but then I understood that it is a kind of normal technique, by saying, okay, I'm competing, so I have to really put that person down. So
Yeah.
it's
Well,
something interesting. By the way, because we are live on Facebook, I'm always checking if there is any question from the people that are watching. So if they want to put the questions, this is like in the weddings, or speak now or forever hold your breath.
yeah,
Uh,
and I've got my phone here, and one of the questions that came to me as a DM just now, Filipe, was um, asking about, are women more I'm just going to paraphrase, are women more verbal, asking for what they want in bed? Now I'm looking at the yeah, and because there used to be a time um, women didn't say anything, and so the guy doesn't know. I mean, it just because they were afraid they'd hurt this guy's feelings, what, oh, I'll injure his ego, so I'm not going to say, gee, that doesn't work for me, I don't really care for that. When in fact now, all the women I talk to, and not all the women, many of the women I talk to in the book, which is one of my chapters, it's called A Little Bit to the Left. All you need, all you need to maybe say is, could you go a little bit to the left? And then everything could be bam, just great. But if you don't say anything, no one's going to know. And then you complain, complain, complain.
the funny thing is that the principle of communication is feedback. So if you don't
Yes.
give feedback, there is
Yes.
no communication.
Yes.
But actually, that connects with another kind of Philip's theory, that there is a lot of guys that, because they never heard that they were doing bad, that they were doing bad things, that they were not good enough, when they find somebody that really has some experience what is good, they uh, they might say, these guys might say, I never had any complaints, probably it's your problem. And these guys can continue through life not knowing that they really suck on that. So
Yes.
they are really,
Yes. Yes. And
and
also, they can't, it's difficult for that group of men, in my opinion, and personal research, for them to accept that they're not the all-American great lover of all time. On a scale of 1 to 10, you're a 15. I mean, that's such a bunch of BS. I mean, and so it's like, you know, the polish and the perfection and the greatness comes from the communication, like you said. But you have to be willing to communicate, because otherwise you just pull out your crystal ball and hope the other person gets it. And that is never going to happen. Hence, I think why women feel very comfortable oftentimes with younger men, because they handle it better. They don't handle it the same way.
They will be the teacher.
Yeah, well, in both ways, and just such a different, there's just more of a synchronicity. I'm not saying that applies to everyone, and I'm not saying it has to be decades. I'm just saying even a few years can just be a better recipe in some cases, not in every case. And I think it comes right back again to that spending time saying yes. But yes, yes, yes to everything. Say yes, and then see what happens.
You know, from that experience that I put to the table, one of the things that I discovered talking with lots of women across the world, one thing that had an impact throughout the world in some years ago was one TV series that was Sex in the City. And
yes,
what was the impact, in my view, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree, is that there was 4 types of women in that series. Every single woman that was watching that series was thinking, I'm Samantha. I'm, I don't remember the
Carrera.
Yeah. Okay. So they would identify. And the funny thing is that they would identify in not every time the same person. They would change. Now they wouldn't say it like this, but they might be in a Samantha stage or in a Carrie stage or everything.
Right.
And the main message, let's say the subliminary message behind that series is, it's okay to have pleasure. And you should search for it. And that, let's say, release a lot of women across the world, because of cultural things, religious things, they were like constrained to this idea. It's a kind of bad thing if I will look to have pleasure. I should get it in some way, magical way, in this kind of Cinderella story.
Right. Right.
But not search for it.
Well, and I agree with you on that. In fact, I write about Sex in the City in my book because I studied those scripts. I studied the dialogue and the character development of that show, which was probably one of the most brilliant shows of its time for all the reasons you've just mentioned. But in addition to that, those women represented 4 women of great integrity. Now, people can get caught up in, oh, the language and the sex or whatever. But if you look at the life decisions they were faced with in each character beyond the relationship thing, they always took action based on integrity, whether it was, helping to care for someone who had, was ill, or it was doing the right thing by their friend, or, whatever it was. And I thought that was an interesting combination. It wasn't just anything goes. And so I like the combination of both of those things. I think that was cool.
Another thing, what men and women consider unforgettable? What is your opinion on that?
Well, what's your opinion? I'd be curious to know what your opinion on that is first, because you're the man who's been all over the continents. We've established that. So tell me, what was unforgettable about each continent experience or continental experience?
I think that every single time, the things that I remember, because it has been a while now, I'm much calmer for the last years. But the things, it depends, I think, on the personality. But I I had a kind, um, not literally, but I had a kind of James Bond kind of life on that. So
How so? How so?
think about um, absolutely crazy situations like coming from a Woody Allen movie,
Hmm.
and that things are look absurd, but um, people around don't know that what is happening, and we are like doing things in a way that nobody knows what we are doing,
Right,
and having a kind of adventure around that. So
right.
that creates an unforgettable experience. So it was always different. So when you escape routine, I think that
Yeah,
makes it more unforgettable.
yeah, yeah. I think that's a great answer. Um, and I think whatever, what makes people unforgettable too are different, spontaneous action. So you found spontaneity. There's a term I use in one of my books. I say plan to be spontaneous, which is an oxymoron. Obviously it doesn't exist, but it's but that's what you seem to have done. You plan to be spontaneous, and I think that is a great way to be unforgettable. But it is difficult for some people. Not everyone is, outgoing or gregarious. So I'm not recommending people, break the mold just to do, you got to do what brings you joy and happiness and peace of mind. And as long as you do, I always say, as long as you don't do harm to anyone, it's no one's
Yeah.
else's business. You just don't do harm
I,
to
I,
any.
I was now thinking about an example of unforgettable. Do you know that movie with George Clooney, Up in the Air?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So there is a scene that you see George Clooney, and I don't remember the name of the actress, that they open the computers and they are checking schedules where they are in the USA
Yeah.
and where they can meet
Yeah.
at let's say, thinking about flights, hubs, and everything. And I did just like that, but not being in front, through Skype.
Right.
So with a Sky Scanner, booking at the same time, looking to which city in the middle we could meet, and things like this. And this creates kind of that kind of unforgettable experience. So when I saw that movie, I was like, wow.
Yes. Well, and I think there is a lot to that. And I've had relationships too with, and I think the best relationships I've had, that when I say relationship, maybe it was nothing deep to it, but what was not being in the same city. I think sometimes togetherness can be overrated. I don't mean that in terms of, I believe in certainly marriage, relationships, commitment, all of that. I believe in all of that. It's just that sometimes, depending on the time of your life, it's good to have the distance because things are always fresh as a result. And that freshness, is something you work hard to keep going on. And so I think your point is excellent. I think your point is excellent. As long as you don't do harm to someone, I think, you know, again,
What you were saying about distance, I was thinking this is a way, the distance, when you have this kind of distance from time to time, is a way of keeping the relationship in the dating stage.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
no, so you are, because that's another Philip's theory,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
men are much more romantic than women, and this is because normally we think, women are the romantic ones, but men like to be dating the whole time, and women, they go from dating to their let's say the marriage or living together routine. They tend to try to make it a routine, uh, and that is sometimes the way of killing a relationship.
And fixing. I mean, well, and things happen if children are involved, or that's one of the things I write about in the book, is the way to kill a relationship fast is to immediately tell some guy or woman, oh, okay, can't wait for you to meet my sister, meet my mom, come to my mom's birthday party, come. The dynamics change when other people get involved. I'm not saying you should eliminate everyone in your life, but you have to carve out. It's got to be sacred. I mean, to me, that's got to be a sacred space first and foremost for a lengthy period of time. And otherwise, I think the dynamics can kind of get messed up. Can I ask you, I promised the listeners I do a quick 3-question assessment. I'm going to ask these questions to you, Filipe, and the answer is either yes or no. So It doesn't have to, and you can just jot it down. It can be private. You don't have to share that, or you can say it.
But so my face will say it.
then just say
I will put my poker face,
No, I want you to say it. I think that'll help people.
I'm looking for my sunglasses.
Yeah, right. I hear you. So 3 quick questions. And in my book, I do a lot of assessments that are very deep. This is very superficial, just really quick to kind of calibrate where you are. Number 1, is someone who listens a turn on for you? Someone who is a good listener, is that a turn on, or does it even matter? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, Filipe, first question. Second, does the person's past experience, woman or man, is their past experience with other relationships matter to you? Yes or no?
Not really.
Okay. And number 3, should a relationship feel and be easy? I'm not talking about life crises. I'm just talking about feelings. Should it be easy? Yes or no?
Yes, definitely yes.
Okay. You get A++ because the idea is to get 3 yeses. You got 2. As long as you get 2 out of 3, you are thumbs up. Good job, Filipe. Good job. And what that does is it calibrates your inner feeling about what matters and how you matter to yourself, and in a very quick way. Obviously not going into the depth of what all that plays out into, but it's part of it. And the 2 questions that ask, I think that listeners should ask themselves, what would you most like the other person to think of you and to say to you? What would you like them to think of you? How would you like them to think of you, I should say? And what would you like them to say to you? So, Filipe, what would you like a woman to say to you? Besides, I love you. Let's take that off the table. Let's just take that off the table.
Well, that's a good question. I think that it comes to the first question that you made. It is very, very important. I think that every human being has an aspiration to be heard, and so we like to be heard. And one thing that really irritates me is being with a person that is always interrupting when I'm talking, and basically putting their point or their subject. So I'm a very patient guy. When people are talking with me, I tend not to interrupt, except when we are doing these lives, because we agree in interrupting ourselves. But I normally hear people carefully, and I like to also be heard carefully. So for me, it's not a question of what they say to me, because I even give much more importance to actions than to words. So sometimes this kind of thing, this automatic thing that I see in some couple interaction of, oh love, oh I love you so much, blah blah blah, and you see that this is a kind of stamp that you have to put in your passport, in your emotional passport. If you don't have like 5 stamps that day, you are having a problem. And
that's a great term.
Action.
Can I use that term, emotional passport, and credit that to you?
Oh yes, please.
I like that.
Basically, I just created now, so I hope nobody else created a moment.
So you're okay if I mention that and credit you with that term. I love that term, and I like the concept of stamping a passport. You and I've done that hundreds of times all over the world, and it's the same when someone's expecting you to say, I love you 3 times a day, or call 4 times a day, or whatever. So you said, what kind of actions does the person present? So let me ask you, what kind of actions do you look for as a man?
Surprise.
That gets back to spontaneous, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Okay.
Because that thing of doing all over the same thing, every time the same thing, it is, and it doesn't connect with many times with what is being said. So that's why this thing about so important of saying X times that I love you, X times that you are the best. It doesn't resonate with me. I don't like to be a kind of idol, but I like to be treated as an idol. So it's the different thing. Actions more than words, for me, matter much more. For instance, I give you an example. A reason of conflict that I had many years ago was the idea that there are days for expressing that you like somebody. There is Christmas, there is Valentine's Day, there is Easter, there is blah blah, there is the anniversary of the first date, there is an anniversary of wedding. I think that is creating a lot of stress across the world, because you might not be in the best moment to go and get that present or do that thing, but you have to do it that day. So you have to book that table in that restaurant, and you cannot manage to book because it's already full for the last month, and you get stressed because she likes that restaurant or he likes that restaurant, and it's stupid. Book it in the next day or the day before. It will be empty, much easier. And it
turns it all into an obligatory situation. It's obligatory when it's like that. It's not
stamping the passport. Because if you have the wrong stamp, you cannot cross the border.
That's right. That's a great. I hadn't thought of it that way, but I think you're absolutely right. And it turns it into an obligatory feeling. And it doesn't mean I certainly respect special holidays, but my daughter and I've had this conversation about like Mother's Day. I am extremely close to my daughter, and we talk every day, and she's awesome, and I admire her. Mother's Day, she always is respectful and honors me, and we'll have dinner because we choose to. We want to hang out and have a great dinner and talk life and all of that. But I know people who have children, it's that one day a year, Father's Day or Mother's Day, that's the day their child feels obligated to. I don't have that, because every single day I feel respected and I feel loved. I don't need to have a day on the calendar for it. I don't need to carve out a brunch time. I think the planning to be spontaneous is a flame that you really can keep ignited. You really can. I wanted to ask you too about what you think about the brain actually setting a thermostat for emotional and physical interaction, or if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, I think the brain is the most erogenous area of the body. because
Yep.
basically it controls everything.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's all about our perception.
Yeah.
And the words that we hear, the sounds, the smells, everything, it is processed by our brain that release a lot of substances in our bodies. So
Yeah.
we this is it's a very complex and absolutely amazing machine that we have in our heads. So I think we don't we always talk about feel it in the heart, but basically it's the brain that is working. It's doing the whole
Yeah.
work. The heart is only pumping blood. But of course, for poets, it's a way of saying, okay, it's the heart, because we give with the heart and everything. But it's a pump, basically. But I'm very pragmatic. Maybe I have a little bit of Nordic in me.
No, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. It's hydraulic, it's plumbing, and it's electricity. I mean, that's the heart. That you talk to any cardiac surgeon, and that's what they will tell you. Now, I don't mean you don't love from the heart or feel it in your heart or give your heart, but the brain is the largest sex organ.
Yeah.
And the brain is an organ. And everything starts there. It doesn't start here or there or there. It starts here. And that's the largest sex organ. So, and I do talk about in the book very simply about how the brain sets this thermostat. So when you have those feelings for someone or you participate in that relationship, a number of great things happen, especially if the sex is good. You lose weight almost immediately. You feel less pain. Your bones
I think your
become
skin improves
stronger.
also.
Pardon me?
Your skin
Pardon me?
improves.
Your skin improves, your bones get stronger, your cardiovascular system is energized. There are so many physiological things, and because up here, the thermostat changed. So like in your home, when you move the thermostat because it's too warm or too cold, it affects everything. It affects your comfort and it affects the environment. And it's the same in your brain. And so that thermostat can be controlled. And age has very little to do with it. It has to do with your awareness and the ability to, again, say yes. I mean, that is, if you don't say yes, if you think all this and you keep saying no, 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 you're going to stay in the same place. So, how are you saying yes? I guess that would be sort of one of the things I want people to think about after this conversation.
Yeah. So don't limit your brain, because it's always up to us. So our mood, we can control our mood. So, and also we should surround ourselves with people that help in getting us in a good mood. And
yes.
because
And that's so important. Yes. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, no, it's basically what this is, that we are also the people that we surround with. If we surround with negative people, with people that are frustrated, we will tend to be frustrated. If we surround ourselves with optimistic, not crazy, but optimistic and positive people, we will be more positive. So at some points, the best way of improving our relationships is to change the group of friends that we have. Because many times we are attracting the wrong type of people because of the group of people that we surround us. So
yes, and I hear all the time, people, men and women will say to me, "Oh, there's so few fish in the sea. Oh, there are no available men. Everyone's married." Well, first of all, no, everyone is not married. There is an ocean full of fish. There's not, so much of it is your perspective.
and the problem is that they are fishing in the same ocean.
There you go.
So
yes, sir.
So
yes.
Sometimes you have to change ocean. Oh, there is no fish in the ocean. Yeah, there are several oceans in the world, so go to another one.
There you go.
It's
it.
a fishing problem.
Yeah. Exactly. And so when you, and also that's self, thoughts become things, and people, I do a 30 seconds at the beach thing on social media every week. And it really delivers the message of, how thoughts become things. And so on my circle, my inner circle of friends and close people, and even individuals I agree to do a Facebook Live with, or the kind of thing we're doing today, has shrunk very, very narrowly. I I don't want to be a receptacle for all the garbage someone has to throw on top of me. I want to be a vessel of, maybe ideas, disagreement, think together, whatever it may be, and and enjoyment. And so that I am very selective of who I speak with, spend time with, Zoom with. It doesn't,
Oh,
because
namaste.
I deserve that. And like someone like you, when we first met, was like, wow, this is someone who has a worldview. That's why I loved your title when you came up with the, this worldview, European, American, and outside of what relationships is. No one said that to me in all the time, all the years I've been writing this book. No one has said that. So because we're one humanity, and one global society. So it's good, it's wonderful to hear thoughts and to have that honest conversation. So I thank you for that.
Oh, my pleasure. And I thank you for this conversation. We are reaching the end in terms of the time that we agreed. Actually, we are passing that time. And this might be an excuse to do it further. By the way, when the book will be out, I suppose it will be after available in Amazon and platforms like this.
Yes, the end of the year. It'll be at the end of the year, and I will be promoting that release date and the pre-purchase time. So check my social media, and everything will be on there for everyone. But this means a lot. Your invitation to join you today. I can do lots of things on social media, but one of the cool things is having this kind of conversation across the Atlantic Ocean. Here you are in Portugal. Here I am in
And this
Southern
is Lisbon behind me.
Oh, it's so beautiful. It's so exquisite. And, to have that conversation. And I hope today what we've done is given people a few little tidbits of things to think about, entertain. And I'd love to hear from people. Feel free to DM me, whatever. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And, like the Beatles say, love, love is all there is. And so you, however that looks to you and feels to you, I support people, and I really, really am excited about this book. It's called Discover True North Relationships. And it's going to be, and I always say the same thing. I always say, let me just put my little thing here. This is the little laminated cover here, and it's similar to Discover True North. Follow the heart. Okay, so that's my point today.
And the important thing is that you have research to based on what you are writing, what you wrote, to better say. So this is very important because you talked with people. You had meaningful dialogues with people that they share stuff that normally they don't. So
yes, I did. And I put a disclaimer in the beginning. It's not scientifically based because I'm not a doctor. However, it's my observation, and I allow the reader take what works for you and expand on it, or ignore and delete what doesn't work. There's no right or wrong, good or bad. This isn't about any judgment. It is simply to connect with the human spirit. And, I always say life is good when you're good to your life.
So you are offering not a manual, but a menu.
There you go. I like that. I like that.
So, Anne, once again, thank you very much. Let's do this maybe more times. I don't know when, but we will figure out when. And and this will be also available for on YouTube and Facebook. So until next time, thank you.
Okay, thank you a million times. It was an honor. Thank you, Filipe. Bye, everyone.